The art at Baha will take your breath away. One of the reasons for that, our star today, John Cox. He's been instrumental in ensuring that Baha has created the most beautiful and splendid art from around the region. He brings that expertise to our conversation about the upcoming Baha Culinary and Art Festival. I'm Home of Stars. Let's get into it.
My name is John Cox. I'm the Executive Director for Arts and Culture for the Baha Resort. We wanted to really just build on the footprint that we had last year. Obviously because Baha as a greater resort has such a complex and large footprint as an art department, as an art offering, as an experience kind of builder for the entire resort. We felt that we really needed to bring that to the fore. And it's hard to do that because the art department here is so layered and so kind of complex and has so many partnerships that last year was difficult to kind of get all of those things in there without kind of overbearing people. So this year we ramped it up because a couple of years ago I was in conversation with Graham Davis, who's my boss, and we have a shared vision that we want to create this platform, which is like an Art Basel for the Caribbean. And we always thought that the Culinary and Arts Festival could be the basin from which that fair would kind of grow, right? And so working with my team, we kind of put our heads together and we said, listen, we really want to form this fair concept and kind of identify it, christen it, like within our own kind of creative energy as a group. And then we presented that to Graham and he was like, yep, this sounds great. So we gave it its blessing. And then we said, okay, so now we have to start working with the marketing team and really see how we're going to bring these ideas together. And so far so good. I mean, it's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
So we recognize that it's only just year 2 and that's still kind of infancy. So we really need to figure some things out,
Okay.
Fuse is our title. I mean, one of the things I like to say, I try to answer the question short, but it's difficult because I'm a rambler, especially when it comes to art. It's unique in the Baha Resort, the big picture, just to zoom back a little bit to give you some context. The current and all of its identity was designed completely internally by the current team, which is unique. Most of the other outlets are either franchises or they get designed by the greater kind of external agencies, but we designed and kind of came up with the idea for the word current or the name the current, which for us has a lot of different iterations. In the beginning it had to do with current in Eleuthera and the flow of the energy of water and that kind of push, and we kind of imagined the name Baha, shallow water, water current flowing through, and we wanted art and creativity to be flowing through the resort. So that's where we got the current from. And then we also started to play off of how Bahamians like to refer to electricity as current, which is why the sign looks like an electric, like an old-fashioned neon light, and our moths and stuff that are around us are all part of that. So fuse naturally came out of the idea of like the context of current and electricity and a fuse box, and also the fusion of things kind of coming together. Fusion of the Bahamas connected to the other parts of the region, also the fusion of the visual arts to the culinary arts. So, that's where it came from. So it's nice for us to like pick words that we feel like have like multiple definitions that also connect to it. And then I think in the scheme of art fairs in the world, the ones that are kind of well known and popular, like they're usually like one word, like it's like Volta or Untitled or Pulse or, Freeze or Scope. And so we figured like Fuse could really be like in the mix of that kind of like really bold graphic family of fair names. So we reached out to quite a few galleries and agencies, like art organizations. So just to give some context too, so art fairs, for people who may not be so familiar with going to Art Basel or other things, they're really kind of dynamic trade shows that operate more so around galleries than they do artists, right? Okay. So you enter the fair as a gallery, and then you bring the artists that you represent to the fair.
Okay.
So it's not really like you lead with I'm bringing, let's just say I have let me give a good example, right? So I have Angelica Walls-Whitfield is one of the artists that we represent in the current, right? Like in our at the moment. So it's not that I would present Angelica to the fair, I would present the current to the fair, and then the current would represent Angelica. So that's how you step into it. But because this is the early stages of this kind of concept, we reached out to a lot of different galleries in the region, and so we have some galleries bringing artists, but then some artists we just reached out to directly. So we have people like Deborah Jack, Marlon Griffith, Charles Campbell, just a few examples of people who are representing themselves, like as just the energy of Deborah Jack and all of her work. She's coming herself. Charles Campbell's work will be in the fair. Marlon Griffith will be in the fair. But we also have a gallery called Black Pony, which is from Bermuda. And that gallery actually represents the irony with that. That's a funny one. Her name is Lisa Howie. She runs that gallery, and she has artists from all over the region. So she's bringing 2 artists from Cuba, and she actually represents Dee Dee Brown, who's a Bahamian.
Wow.
So Dee Dee Brown is represented by a gallery that's from Bermuda. And so this is all a part of the talks that we're going to have 2, which we know are going to be dynamic and interesting. You guys know who Rayanne Dean is. She's going to moderate these talks for us again this year, but we're talking about like the role that galleries play in the need to have our own Caribbean art fair that represents the diaspora of Caribbean practitioners, not only in the region, but in the world. And so we're talking about that as a thing. So bringing the people together this year in this way is really just to really kind of like build a footprint that we can then build upon to really get us to where we need to be, which is probably going to take us 3, 4, 5 years to get to that space for the fair to really truly function like a real fair does. You know, one of the fun things about it is I was talking with folks from the marketing team, and you know, the idea that we have this culinary experience wrapped or part of the fair or part of Fuse and vice versa is really amazing, because there is a lot of opportunity to interact, and with the food, you know, you want to be there and you want to do the demonstrations, you want to taste, right? So with the art, it's going to be a similar dynamic, right? So we have 20 booths in the pavilion, in the convention center, but there's way more than 20 artists in there. So because some booths have like 3 or 4 artists in each booth, right? Some have 1, but some have several. So to answer your question, as it relates to the booth, some artists will be there. The artwork is very interactive. There will be a person stationed in each booth. So if you have a question about something, you go like, what's that? Or I don't understand, I don't get it. Someone will be able to articulate that. But we will have workshops throughout the day and demonstrations throughout the day for people to kind of like sit and watch what's going on. They're going to be some of the talks are going to be in a breakout room. But yes, you're going to be able to interact, and as well as in Echo, where we are now, programming will be running concurrently as well over the 2 days. So people, if they look at the schedule, say, oh, I can come up here and I can watch a film, or I can come up, there's going to be another event up in Echo that I can kind of take place and leave for an hour and then come back to the pavilion. And so, I mean, I think it's just such an awesome framework and collaboration, because if you walk through Art Basel Miami Beach, which is a big fair, right, in Miami in December, in the convention center, it's not only the art booth, like there's full-on lounges, there's F&B, there's retail opportunities, all mixed together. And that's what I think is so amazing about how this fair is put together because we don't have to worry about the F&B part, because that's its own engine run by Marcus and company. So I mean, like, what better person from the culinary world to collaborate with than Marcus Samuelson? I mean, he is like such an art guy that I feel like sometimes I almost forget that he's a food guy, because he's so into art and has so many artist friends and so on and so forth. So he's really been instrumental in helping us, you know, kind of make the whole thing feel interactive. And yes, there's going to be tours, talks, demonstrations, experiences for people to go to do hands-on, and then in each booth there's different things. Some of the art in the booths is quite interactive as well. I'm very enthusiastic and inspired by it. You know, it was funny, I was doing an interview earlier today, and somebody asked me a similar question, and like, you know, it's been about 3 decades that I've been like involved in art. Like I got like a very early start and involved with, you know, the art community, and people are talking about like these kind of forefathers of, and I say fathers because the reality is that most of them were men that were celebrated in the early stages, but they were so accessible to me when I was young, and so supportive, and you know, and just open and let me in and said, oh, Max Taylor asked me my opinion on what type of paint he should use for paintings that he was doing, and I was like, dude, I'm only 20 years old, like why? I mean, you are this guy. But they turned themselves inside out and really kind of like came to a level where I felt like I was a real partner with them, and I feel like that's what I want to do for the artists that I can do it for, and that's part of the mission of the current team, and we just try to make everything as accessible as possible. But another thing that I recognized early on, which Fuse and this festival kind of embody the essence of, is that as entertaining as the battle metaphorically is in the Colosseum, so needs to be the Colosseum, right? So we are kind of building a Colosseum in this festival, right? So we need to create this beautiful platform around which artists and culinary folks can just do their thing, and actually it kind of then changes, it helps us reimagine the definition of what like a Bahamian experience is, right? Which we cannot remove hospitality from that. But if we get opportunities to like kind of shatter the notion of hospitality as we understand it, and then like reassemble the pieces, and creativity and culinary and kind of all these other agencies become a part of that, I think is where the ship is where the future is, right? And so the Culinary and Arts Festival is the embodiment of that. If we can make this fair come to life and Fuse and really grow with the culinary side and really like just collectively see it as one future, I'm excited about that. So I love all the young artists, and I'm just honored that we get to like still rub shoulders with them.
John Cox's passion for art is evident. If you want to see what that looks like on a grand scale, be sure to join us at Fuse at the Baha Culinary and Arts Festival. Go to www.bahamar.com for tickets.